Hello and welcome back to the latest episode of Council Watch. And it was the annual general meeting yesterday, so I thought I'd pop along. Oddly, I sort of did expect a few members of the public would be there too, but it appeared to be just me, which was slightly awkward. But everybody's really nice. So I sat there and thought I'd watch what was going on. And my real reason for turning up was I wanted to see how the mayor got elected. I think I've missed it in the past. And I'd sort of read their standing orders rules on how it works, and it looked a bit complicated if there were multiple people going to want to be mayor. So I figured that as clearly there was going to be a little bit of sort of confusion or complication about how it's going to happen. But I actually have to admit it went really smoothly. Obviously, the sitting mayor, Naseema Begum, wanted to be re-elected, and her deputy also fancied it too. So it was sort of a really nice, pleasant sort of contest, really. And it sort of went like this.
So the first order of business is to elect the mayor. Councillor Patience.
Yes. Before we start, Chair, is it possibility of the councillors would agree to a recorded vote on the positions of the mayor and the deputy mayor? Very similar to what we had last night at East Suffolk.
Anyone can request a recorded vote, you don't have to agree to it
Yeah, anyone can request a recorded vote, so that's...
before the
I
motion.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm requesting a recorded vote on the deputy and the mayor's positions, if there's more than one applicant.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to explain a few things. Normally, whenever you have a vote, it's just a show of hands. 5 people for, 4 people against, and maybe a couple of abstentions, that sort of thing. Well, Councillor Patience's idea here is that the votes each individual councillor gives are recorded, so we know exactly who voted for which candidate. So it adds to the stress level a bit, and I noticed in the room there was a sort of tension. So much as these things are sort of always like supposed to be sort of serious, important and useful, sometimes they're quite stressful things, and I suspect a few of the people involved really want this bit out of the way as quick as possible, because it is extremely weird.
So can I have nominations for mayor, please? Councillor Raffensperger.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Elise Youngman.
Thank you. Councillor Patience.
I would like to nominate your good self, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Parker. Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
I'll second the nomination for Elise.
Okay, so we take the vote in order of...
Just check there's no further
sorry.
nominations.
Any
first,
further
thank you.
nominations? No? So if we take the vote in order of nominations received, do you want to do the vote, or
No,
what
it's
are we
fine.
doing here?
No, you're still chairing the meeting,
Okay.
and so that's absolutely fine for you to take the vote.
Right, so we've got 2 people who fancy being mayor. Naseema Begum, the current mayor, wants to be re-elected, and we've also had Elise Youngman, who's the current deputy, and she fancies the job too. And even weirder, I noticed that when she walked into the meeting room, she'd had to bring a sort of chain of office-y thing back in with her. I suppose the idea is, there's no guarantee that anybody will get anything, because it's down to a vote. So everybody has to sort of be prepared to not be the mayor or the deputy, which makes it a bit weird for poor Naseema, I think, because she now has to call the vote for herself, which is obviously a little bit strange. But our acting town clerk, Sarah, decides that no, you are the chair of the meeting at this moment, so it is up to you to decide yourself. That's great, isn't it?
And so recorded vote, how does that work? Just
Yeah,
everybody
so
vote?
we'll go round the room and ask for votes for
Sorry, we'll go around the room and ask for votes for Councillor Youngman's nomination. Okay, and Lauren will record the names of those voting for Councillor Youngman and those voting against, and then we'll go around and do the same. Okay, and you've got to get an absolute majority, so it can't be tied. So,
Okay. Councillor Patience.
I suggest we make it a little bit easier. There's only 2 applicants. We tell whoever's asking the question whether we want to be a good self or the other candidate. Yes?
Is that right? Okay, all votes for Councillor Elise Youngman.
right, so I'll now assist Lauren and go around the room. Councillor Youngman, Councillor Webb, Councillor Rappensberger, Councillor Pearce, Councillor Colby, Councillor Breakspear.
Thank you.
How many is that?
Um,
Just a moment, please. 6 votes.
In favour of councillor.
Yeah, 6. Yep, okay.
Right, first bit done. That's 6 votes for Councillor Youngman. And by my reckoning, there were 14 councillors around the table. I actually counted 13, then realised I had to count the mayor as well.
votes for myself.
Councillor Patience, Councillor Parker, Councillor Murray, Councillor Moore, Councillor Craig, Councillor Barker, Councillor Begum. How many is that?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7, and we have got 13 people here. Let me just check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got 14.
It wasn't just me then. The acting town clerk counted 13 as well. So, but there were 14. And we got 7. So that's 7 to 6.
Councillor Jones, I think.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Abstention on both.
You're an abstention on both. That's why the numbers are wrong.
Yeah.
Thank you. So if we'd gone around the room, we wouldn't have had that problem. But never mind. Right, thank you. So that makes it 14 now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
1, 2,
Yeah,
3,
that's
4,
the
5,
correct
6,
number.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I don't know if you spotted there, but Councillor Jen Jones decided to abstain, which seems a bit odd under the circumstances, because I was pretty sure she was going to vote for Elise Youngman. But I realised afterwards that what she did was prevented the meeting getting into deadlock, because, as it was pointed out earlier on, if it if it had been 7-7, then that can't exist. You're not allowed to have deadlock. So it would have had to go to another vote and possibly another vote until somebody changed their mind. The system works quite well, the one that's in their standing orders. If there are 3 candidates, basically, if you get deadlock and things, you just basically knock out the lowest one till you're left with someone who can win. But with an even number of councillors present at the meeting, you're a bit stuck. If you've got they can't move on until there's a new mayor. So I think she sort of did a bit of a dignified thing and sort of voted like that. It's very tricky, but if she'd have voted for Elise Youngman, they could possibly still been there 3 hours later. So I guess that was a very sensible thing to do. But it's a bit odd, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah, we've got 6 for councillor Youngman. 6, 7 for councillor Begum.
yeah, okay. So you're duly elected as mayor for the forthcoming council. Yeah, Councillor Bacon.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks, everyone.
Right, so we need you to sign a declaration of acceptance of office before you can continue. Okay. Do you need to
Yes,
pen?
please.
Yep, okay.
Oh, I'm shaking.
So that's the declaration of acceptance of office of mayor for Lowestoft Town Council for the forthcoming council year signed. So that's great. Thank you. That's a formal election. That's why that has to be signed off. Okay, unless you want to say any words, you can now move on to the second agenda item.
Just thank you. I don't know what else to say. Sorry, I'm really nervous.
Right, there we go. Job done. New mayor. Now we need a deputy.
Thank you. Councillor Craig.
I propose Councillor Sonia Barker.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
I would like to second Councillor Youngman.
Councillor Parker.
second Councillor Sonia Barker.
Thank you. So again, any more nominations for deputy mayor?
We're going to
So
do it the same way.
same way.
Yeah.
If I think Councillor Youngman was proposed first, so votes in favour of Councillor Youngman, please.
So we have Councillor Youngman, Councillor Webb, Councillor Roppensberger, Councillor Pearce, Councillor Murray, Councillor Jones, Councillor Colby, Councillor Breakspear. And yourself? No, you can stand. Yeah, okay, thank you.
And votes for Councillor Barker, please.
Okay, Councillor Patience, Councillor Parker, Councillor Moore, Councillor Craig, Councillor Barker, and Councillor Baden. Thank you.
8 in favour of Councillor Youngman. 4, 5, 6 in favour of Councillor Barker.
That makes 14. Yes, Councillor Youngman's duly appointed as deputy mayor.
Congratulations.
I have my chains back in.
Yes. So would you like to have a photo taken at the end of the meeting or now? Do you want to get on with business? We take one later or?
Just do it at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
And there we go. The actual deputy mayor is now Elise Youngman, who got 8 votes, and Sonia Barker, who was, if you remember, a couple of years back, she was the previous mayor. She actually got 6 votes. So in actual fact, we've got Nasima Begum and Elise Youngman back in the post that they had before the meeting started. And I guess Elise Youngman can take her chain back home again. I wanted to talk about something else. It's a bit difficult. Disability Discrimination Act. Do you remember that when it came in? And all sorts of shops, offices, various sort of business premises suddenly had to put in systems that allowed for people who have a bit of issue with hearing to actually hear better. Now, the Disability Discrimination Act has been largely replaced by the Equalities Act, to be honest, because it's quite elderly. But the idea is that people put into play sort of practices that don't discriminate against people. So if you're not very good at eyes, ears, maybe you can't speak, maybe you're in a wheelchair, all those sort of things that I think nowadays we know about, you're expected to make reasonable adjustments. There are exceptions, but pretty much everybody is expected to help. And quite a lot of people have trouble with hearing. I mean, I'm actually weirdly not one of those. All my life I've been exposed to really loud music, and my hearing's still pretty good. The reason I mention this is because in that meeting last night, and I'm not going to show you that bit because I don't want to sort of highlight the people who were actually doing it, but there are 3 people in that meeting room that I'm aware of who have trouble with their hearing. They've all got assistance in the way of hearing aids, and nowadays some of those things are pretty clever. The meeting room has actually got a loop system installed. I don't think it's been done particularly well because it's sort of basically just under sticky tape on the floor. But if anybody goes and sits in the public area, then with all their little microphones that they constantly press the buttons on, anybody who sits in that area should be able to hear what any of the councillors say. The snag in that room is the councillors can't hear because the loop system doesn't seem to cover the area where the councillors are sitting. Now, what that means is that where I was, which was probably the furthest away from the chair, the volume from the chair, the acting town clerk and Lauren, who's keeping the notes, was quiet. And they're not naturally loud speaking people, they haven't got booming voices, none of them. And if you look on a plan of the room, the distance between the furthest councillor and one of the clerks or the mayor is about 6 metres. That's a fair way, and of course there are people as obstacles in the way. I note for some of that meeting, Andy was sort of leaning forward so he can get a grip on what was going on at the meeting. But sometimes that meant that he was a barrier between the speaker and the listener at that 6 metres difference. So just have a look at this plan. So this is a graphic representation of the way the room's laid out. The red chair is where the chair of the meeting sits, the mayor in this particular case. The 2 light blue ones are the officers, and the dark blue chairs are where all the councillors sit. And you can see that the distance from end to end, where, let's say, one of the officers is sitting to where the furthest dark blue chair is about 6 metres. And so it's no wonder that the people who sit in those chairs don't hear very well what's going on the sort of top table side. If you're wondering what that peculiar sort of urn thing is, well, that's my representation of a gadget they call the owl. If you view at home on YouTube, the little gadget that's sitting there on that desk is the 360-degree camera that they use, so we can all see what's going on. And to be honest, that too suffers. So if you are the very end councillor, you're a little dinky sized person. It doesn't really see you very well at all. But again, we can't hear and sometimes we can't see. So it did occur to me that a sort of solution for this is just a rearrangement. I mean, it would be quite simple, I suppose, to actually sort of go round the room and make sure that all the councillors who do have hearing difficulties are moved really close to the top table. But they might not want that, and also it means singling them out, doesn't it? So it's, you sort of wear the label that you've got to be close because you've got dodgy hearing, and that's not really done nowadays. We don't try and highlight the differences. We just try and make sure that people don't suffer. So my idea, just a suggestion really, was there's no reason why the chair has to be on the shortest bit, in the middle. Maybe you could try this. In this version, all I've done is move the chair into the centre of one of the long sides, and I've moved the 2 officials next door to that. So in actual fact, the person who does most of the speaking is usually the chair, but with support from the officers. And in this particular one, the furthest distance away is about 3.5 metres. So that's quite an improvement. I mean, basically, if you actually half the distance, you actually make it 4 times louder. I know that sounds a bit daft, but that's the way the sound works. So if you actually shorten the distance, the actual volume level goes up not to twice what it was, but it goes up to 4 times what it was. So that actually works pretty well. It would probably mean that the little owl would have to be moved to the other side of the table. When they do meetings that involve a projection screen, that's on the wall behind those 3 seats on the top table. Well, in this particular version, 3 people always have to twist their head. It's always been the chair and the officials who have to twist their head. In this particular version, it would just be the 3 people sitting on those chairs there who would have to sort of look behind them to see the screen. But I don't really think that's probably a great problem. There's some technical things, obviously the computers they're using are a little bit further away, but none of those are real problems that can't be solved. And in this particular orientation, then everybody is closer to the people speaking. So that to me would be a useful improvement, and certainly for the people who do struggle hearing a bit, that's got to be a good one. At least perhaps it could be discussed at one of the meetings, because in all fairness, if people cannot hear, they can't participate properly. And it's supposed to be the sort of environment where everybody around the table feels they can join in and contribute. And if you're not hearing properly, that is not good. And sometimes it makes you look a bit foolish if you didn't hear, or worse, you answer a question that wasn't actually said. You just answered what you thought they said. So I think this would be an improvement. Not like me to sort of offer positive suggestions, is it? But there we go. We've got a new mayor, new deputy mayor, and maybe some advice on making it easier for some of the councillors to participate. Oddly, when I talk about hearing aids, the National Health Service hearing aids tend to have the little switch on, so those loop systems work. But if anybody's actually spent their own money and they've got posh ones, not all of those actually work on loop systems. So it's a bit difficult, isn't it? But there we go. The better the hearing aid that you have, the less it works. It doesn't make much sense, does it? So see you on the next video. Look after yourselves. Take care.